We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
The fourth planet in our solar system is no longer an alien world. We've mapped its landscape, analyzed its atmosphere, and explored its desolate terrain. Mars is giving up its secrets. We've already found evidence of water on the Martian surface. Now NASA has sent a new explorer to search for signs of life. A mobile laboratory about the size of a small car, and named for the passion that drives explorers everywhere. Curiosity.
Things are looking good. Coming up on entry.
The world held its breath. Curiosity had touched the Martian atmosphere. 8 years of passion, dedication, and ingenuity was riding on 7 minutes of terror.
Entry, descent, and landing, also known as EDL, is referred to as the 7 minutes of terror because we've got literally 7 minutes to get from the top of the atmosphere to the surface of Mars, going from 13,000 miles an hour to 0 in perfect sequence, perfect choreography, perfect timing, and the computer has to do it all by itself with no help from the ground. If any one thing doesn't work just right, it's game over.
Our heat shield, it heats up and it glows like the surface of the sun.
During entry, the vehicle is not only slowing down violently through the atmosphere, but also we are guiding it like an airplane to be able to land in a very narrow, constrained space. This is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing, and one that we had never attempted on Mars.
Beachall separation. We have seen peak deceleration. It is starting its first bank reversal. It is reporting that we are seeing G's on the order of 11 to 12 Earth G's. Bank reversal 2 is starting. We are now getting telemetry from Odyssey.
Mars is actually really hard to slow down because it has just enough atmosphere that you have to deal with it. Otherwise, it will destroy your spacecraft. On the other hand, it doesn't have enough atmosphere to finish the job.
Curiosity was still going at over 1,600 kilometers per hour. So at that point, they used a parachute.
The parachute is the largest and strongest supersonic parachute that we've ever built to date. It has to be able to withstand 65,000 pounds of force, even though the parachute itself only weighs about 100 pounds.
You should have parachute deploy around Mach 1.7.
When it opens up that fast, it's a neck-snapping 9 Gs.
Immediately, they had to blow off the heat shield, or the onboard radar couldn't see the ground.
This big, huge parachute that we've got, it'll only slow us down to about 200 miles an hour. And that's not slow enough to land. So we have no choice, but we've got to cut it off and then come down in rockets.
We are in powered flight.
But if they went all the way down on rockets, they'd kick up a huge dust cloud that would ruin the rover's sensitive instruments. So they used a maneuver of unprecedented but daring simplicity, which had to be timed to perfection. The sky crane. 20 meters above the surface, Curiosity was lowered on a 6.5-meter tether. This should deposit the rover gently on the surface. Landing on another planet is not yet an exact science.
Standing by for sky crane. Sky crane has started.
Signal to us, you remain strong.
Finally, the descent stage had to blast away from the rover to avoid crashing on top of it.
Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars.
At 22:31 Pacific Daylight Time, Curiosity made a perfect landing on the surface of Mars. And while thousands celebrated 570 million kilometers away on Earth, she sent a picture to show all was well.
Got thumbnails.
For Curiosity, the landing was just the beginning. Before the rover could even contemplate its first mission, its array of equipment had to be tested. During the first Martian days, known as sols, the arm was deployed to ensure samples could be picked up and studied. The onboard ChemCam laser was tested on a fist-sized rock. Next, a short test drive. The patterns of the wheel treads are irregular to show the distance traveled. Now it was ready for the 400-meter drive to a surface feature called Glenelg. There'll be lots to do on the way.
My version of the surface mission is that it's like going on a family vacation and driving from here to Chicago, and except for your family, it's got 400 scientists who want to stop and look at every fossilized whatever.
Mars has been extensively mapped. Previous missions have shown many sites that feature minerals that form in water and which may preserve organics, the building blocks for life. Yet choosing the exact spot to touch down was one of the most challenging decisions of all.
We had about 5 years of effort in bringing together hundreds of scientists, literally, from around the world. Anybody who studied Mars-like places on Earth was invited to contribute their ideas.
With so many expert opinions to consider, it was a momentous decision.
Was there debate about where to land? That's putting it lightly.
While the scientists are looking at the geology, you also have engineers that are looking at, is the terrain something you can drive on? Is the terrain something we can land on?
Ken Edgett was one of the key scientists engaged in the debate.
We should talk about some more of this stuff later. It really boiled down to, so which one offers the science we want to do to address that habitability question?
Curiosity's landing site had to be somewhere that showed evidence of water. They started by looking at sites close to the Martian equator.
Now, when there's 100 sites to choose from and you're trying to get it down to 50, it's kind of easy. When you're going from 10 sites to 4 and 4 sites to 1, then the passions come out. People start, taking these things pretty personally.
How we decide where to land is a big deal.
We fought it out.
They narrowed it down to a short list of 4. Some scientists fought for Holden Crater, a big impact site with evidence that a river once flowed into it. Just north of Holden is Eberswalde Crater, which contains the remains of an ancient river delta. Others argued for Morth, an area with promising evidence of clay minerals. And finally, there was Gale Crater, 154 kilometers in diameter. Gale is one of the deepest points on the planet and has been described as a geological jackpot. It contains hundreds of different layers of rock, each one brimming with possibilities.
So this is a lot of layered rock. In fact, there's very few places in the solar system that we know of with such an expanse of layered rock for us.
In the middle of Gale Crater is Mount Sharp, a 5-kilometer-high mound of eroded sediment. Here, 2 billion years of Martian history could be on display.
This is Gale Crater. This is where Curiosity is going to land, in this white area. We're going to go layer by layer, each layer like a page, and you're going to read, what does this rock tell me? What does this rock tell me? You're going to look at the actual textures, actually look at the little grains in there.
We have almost a guarantee that we're going to fundamentally reshape our understanding of how Mars evolved in its early history.
Gale Crater was a difficult place to land.
We're landing next to a 3-mile-high mountain with canyons cut in it by water, by air flow. And we're going to drive up these canyons. We're going to be surrounded by walls of rock on both sides.
But the team were confident they could pull it off.
We have the ability to land in a smaller, safe zone than was needed by previous spacecraft.
The safe zone for landing is 1/10 of the size of that used for the Spirit and Opportunity rovers in 2003. but it's still about the size of a large city. Curiosity landed just over 2 kilometers from the center of this safe zone. However, with a top speed of 2.4 meters per hour, Mount Sharp is still some way off.
We have to drive out of the landing ellipse in order to get to the real science portion of the mission. So if you ask, when's the payoff is months, years downstream.
But there are many more stories to be told as the rover crawls across the Martian landscape.
We're not human beings if we're not curious and not learning new things. We're curious and we want to learn new things and we want to tell stories. And that's what we do.
The challenge now, get curiosity to the mountain. Coming up, putting the wheels in motion. How do you prepare a robot for life on Mars? Curiosity is the most ambitious Mars rover ever conceived.
Sojourner was about the size of a mailbox. Spirit and Opportunity were about the size of a small portable lawnmower, a small riding lawnmower. This is the size of about a Mini Cooper.
It has a unique suspension system designed for soft landings and has been carefully designed to both navigate and explore the severe Martian environment.
You know, the eggs in the basket analogy comes to mind. We put a lot of eggs in this basket by design. Some questions you can only answer with big missions like this.
Such as, did this cold, hostile planet ever support life?
There's no yardstick that measures habitability. You need to bring a whole suite of payload instruments to figure out if it ever was a habitable planet.
Engineers spent the first month on Mars testing the rover. Now it's been handed over to the science team.
The Curiosity rover is bringing a new set of tools, which are really new eyes into looking at ancient Mars, this crater that is billions of years old.
Curiosity is a robotic geochemist.
In the ideal world, human beings would go to Gale Crater and do this stuff. They'd probably get it done faster, too. But we can't do that. And you try to mimic what the geologists would do.
This process is enabled by a suite of 17 cameras.
It's a very challenging thing to do through the eyes of a rover rather than our eyes.
These help the team navigate the rover over the terrain.
The entire science team needs these pictures.
They're used to figure out where Curiosity should go.
You have all these divergent views of what should we do tomorrow or a week from now, and you're kind of like herding cats, but it's fun.
With 10 different experiments on board, there are many possibilities. At the heart of the machine lies the Sample Analysis at Mars instrument, or SAM.
In a way, the Curiosity rover is built around the SAM instrument. We sort of work from the inside out.
On the science end, we knew that we really got to get more capability to Mars. We need to take the next step.
This is going to drill into rocks, collect the material from inside, and also it tells us more about the kind of the raw composition of Mars.
Rock samples are scooped up and dropped inside Curiosity. Robotic instruments grind the samples to a fine powder. To identify the chemicals present, they vaporize the soil down to basic components. The gases reveal what Mars is made of.
It's a fairly long process of analyzing the gases that are released that is really key for doing a search for organic compounds.
These contain the building blocks of life, carbon and hydrogen.
On Mars, we don't know what the heck is going on. That's one reason we're going there. Maybe life emerged on Mars. Maybe organic compounds bear the imprint of early microbial life on Mars. If we find them, then we'll be in business.
Planetary scientist Paul Mahaffey is eager to see what Sam discovers on Mars. Here, they're testing a model in a Mars chamber. They had to make sure the software was up to speed before Sam got to work.
The GSE's ready.
Let's do it. SAM is amazing because it does a lot of things. We are actually a full-service exploration kit on Mars.
We're still trying to do very ambitious things. We're trying to do things that you would do in a chemical laboratory on Earth.
That alarming tone is what it should sound like on Mars when Sam distributes the samples.
to make sure that as the solids go down into our funnels, we shake them, and when we shake them, it's an audible sound.
So that's great. You can hear it even outside the chamber.
It's like the soundboard on a piano.
Music to their ears here in the lab, but they found a problem during testing. When cutting through rocks, the Teflon drill overheated and started to shred.
So the good news about that is these fluorinated compounds are very distinctive. We can recognize them right away.
But the overheating drill would mask the organic compounds they're searching for.
So we're working very hard to make sure we can have robust ways of working around this issue the best we can.
When you build something for the very first time to use on another planet without ever the ability of fixing it or lubricating it, it's a challenge.
With the challenges on Earth conquered, Paul's colleague, Jim Garvin, is looking forward to the results.
What's the biggie for you? What would you declare victory, you know, the home run?
A home run really would be finding organics. Right. We're going to hit another home run even if we don't find any organics. It's just going to be very, very interesting.
Another method Curiosity uses to analyze rocks seems straight out of science fiction. She shoots them with a laser. It was developed deep in the basement of this Los Alamos lab.
Can you turn down the lights?
This is the test model of the chemistry camera, or ChemCam. It's one of the brightest stars on Curiosity.
Are you ready for the laser, Roger?
Yep. The way it analyzes a composition is by taking a high-powered laser, focusing it on the target, fires the beam down to 5 billionths of a second.
The laser beam used on Mars will be invisible. They're using a green laser here so we can see it with our cameras.
Yeah, it's about 14 millijoules per pulse.
When the laser beam hits, it has the energy of about 1 million light bulbs, very briefly. It just really whams the sample, strips everything apart, and the atoms come off in excited states. And then what happens is a brilliant flash. There's nothing like it.
The flash reveals the rock's chemical makeup, but this instrument almost didn't make it on board the rover. It's been a long journey for Roger Wiens. In the year 2000, his dreams were put on hold after a fire ripped through his community.
And these things come and go. These are facts of life, and life will go on.
He got a second chance in 2004, only to have it taken away in 2007 due to budget problems. His colleagues came to his defense. They presented Roger's case to NASA management, who voted ChemCam onto Curiosity.
Science has a lot of serendipity. We're going to dig in, we're going to be going flat out, we really have a lot of work to do, and I'm excited about it. I want to see the spectrum.
This tiny spark could be a big key in the search for signs of life on Mars.
ChemCam is the first instrument that can analyze hydrogen at a distance from the rover, and that'll be very telltale.
Hydrogen has been spotted from a distance by orbiting spacecraft. And in 2008, the Phoenix lander confirmed the presence of water on Mars in a soil sample.
Water and hydrogen are of course, very important because of the role that water plays in both the climate and environment on the red planet.
Scientists will be able to see past the dust that coats the surface of Mars.
It can actually fool the investigation by hiding the real rock underneath. Okay, so we're putting this window back on so we can pump down and use a Mars pressure around the sample.
So you ready for the laser? Do you know what the chamber pressure is?
Atmospheric pressure on Mars is a mere 1% of Earth's average.
Banging away over here.
So bright.
What happens is the plasma expands more at Mars pressure, and we get a lot brighter plasma.
A brighter plasma means more dramatic results at Mars pressure than on Earth.
And even if we can't drive up some particular area, as long as we're within 7 meters, we can shoot up at different layers.
In a couple of hours, it can collect 20 or 30 samples, zeroing in on specific targets without having to drive there.
And so we can winnow out the, say, uninteresting samples very quickly and get to the heart of what's really interesting for the rover.
It's translated into a chemical fingerprint, like this.
Yeah. Calcium, not just aluminum there.
All of Curiosity's science equipment has to be meticulously prepared for launch. The Mars Science Lab spacecraft that contains Curiosity is prepared in an ultra-clean environment. NASA's planetary protection strategy means that no more than 500,000 bacterial spores can be carried to Mars. That's less than 1/10 of the amount found in a teaspoon of seawater. Preparation for launch is painstaking for the ground crew and painful for the Curiosity engineers who have to let their baby go.
They have a great team on the launch vehicle side, and they're ready to take care of her. But we are definitely nervous parents.
It's a very happy and sad day when you launch her. It's very much I equate it to, say, having your daughter get married. We basically brought her into existence. We powered her up. We spoke to her, and our team understands how she reacts, her emotions, her idiosyncrasies. She's been ours all along, and now I'm going to hand her off to the next team, and they'll get to run her. They've always been on deck waiting for us to get out of the way.
Confirmation that we'll go for launch at this time.
As the launch window approached, pressure ratcheted up on all the Curiosity teams. 8 years of work and $2.5 billion were riding on their confidence that they'd got their procedures and details just right.
But ultimately, you know that you've been trained to do this, and you are ready to do this, and you've got a great team around you and a great spacecraft ready to go. And you ask if I'm nervous, the answer is absolutely I'm nervous. Am I confident that she's going to go and she's going to be successful? Absolutely. It's going to go, and she'll be good.
The other day, we closed the 2 hatches up on the Atlas, and I was able to touch that. I was able to touch the rover when I disconnected the purge from the rad system, and that was kind of an emotional thing, you know. Almost turned around and walked away from it, and QA was like, Dylan, wait a minute. This is the last time you're going to be able to touch this thing. And I'm like, wow, really, that's true. So I'm over there stroking it like a little puppy and had to walk away from it. And to realize that it's almost done and then it's ready to go, you're almost kind of disappointed it's over with, but you're ready to move on to something else.
There's this golden couple of weeks that happens just before launch, which is that we're really kind of done testing. We're done encapsulating the vehicle. It's now part of the launch vehicle provider's job to get it integrated and mounted on top of the rocket. And as far as the spacecraft goes, it's kind of quiescent. When you see what a rocket really does in practice, it's an amazing thing when it works.
The launch team's really excited. So this is very difficult this morning. Launching something from the planet is really hard. Now you all, we make it look easy. It's not.
Rocketry is still a less than perfect business. Failures do happen. You kind of have to make your peace with the notion. It's like a suspension of disbelief, meaning that in order to get through it, you have to believe that rocket launches can only go perfectly. The good news is almost always they really do, and it's really a thrill when it's over.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Atlas V rocket carrying Curiosity lifted off from Cape Canaveral on November the 26th, 2011. A 567 million kilometer journey lay ahead. Coming up, the extraordinary discoveries that paved the way for Curiosity on Mars.
Am I confident that she's going to go and she's going to be successful? Absolutely. It's going to go, and she'll be good.
Right on.
Mars is bleak, bitterly cold, and drenched in radiation. But 2 billion years ago, it was a world more similar to ours. The patterns in the landscape suggest the planet was once covered with lakes and flowing rivers. Curiosity is here to see if that water ever gave rise to life. It's the 7th robot explorer that NASA has successfully landed on the Martian surface. The Pathfinder mission sent the first rover to Mars, Sojourner. Spirit landed in the Gusev crater and made some incredible discoveries before communication was lost in 2011. Its twin, Opportunity, is still roving the surface, having traveled 34 kilometers. The Phoenix lander lasted 6 months at the Martian North Pole in 2008. But it was the Viking landers that were the first to settle on the surface of Mars.
On August 20th, 1975, the first Viking spaceship was launched. Just 2 weeks later, there was a second Viking launch. Together, they began the search for Martian life.
Viking was an ambitious mission. 2 orbiters and 2 landers, headed for different locations on the Red Planet.
We didn't know then what we know now, which is how tough it really is to land on Mars. A moment in every Viking's life that he or she will never forget, sitting with that television right in front of them and watching as the first lines came down. It came down line by line by line.
And you saw 1 section and 2 sections and 3 sections, and you started seeing the surface of Mars, and then you knew we had done it.
There's no way to describe it. We were lifted up. It was, everybody kept walking around. This photograph will be in the books 1,000 years from now.
Viking gave us the first pictures from the surface of the planet. The program lasted over 6 years and caused a revolution in our ideas about water on Mars. Viking mapped the entire planet and charted seasonal changes. But it was the twin rovers launched in 2003 that were to show us the real Mars. Cushioned by airbags, Spirit and Opportunity made dramatic landings at different points on the Martian equator. Both rovers sent back thousands of images, including clear evidence of surface water and dramatic pictures of Martian weather systems. They gave us a new view of Mars, as if we were standing on the surface ourselves.
Images that we take are taken very much with a human perspective because the cameras on the rover are right up about eye level for a person standing on Mars. So you get the perspective as if you were there yourself, looking over these great vistas. And all the images, the over 250,000 images that have been returned have really made Mars seem like our neighborhood. It's no longer a foreign or alien or distant world. It's now a familiar place that has Earth-like characteristics. For Opportunity, things went well from the very beginning. When we landed, right within a short distance of the rover was exposed bedrock. And when the scientists examined that bedrock in detail, they determined that it was laid down in water some 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. So this was the first evidence of ancient surface water on Mars.
Well, I think the greatest accomplishment of Eagle Crater was they saw things that look like blueberries. And these are things that are little tiny balls of material that look like something that was produced in the presence of water. And so this was one of the first indications that there had been water on Mars in the past. And so I think that was one of the greatest accomplishments.
Eagle Crater was selected as a landing site because craters are like time tunnels for geologists. The rock at the bottom can be millions of years older than the rock at the top. After exploring Eagle, Opportunity drove to the slightly larger Endurance. But crater exploration is a dangerous business.
That's something we never thought we would ever do with a rover because it was considered too dangerous. So we actually had to do some additional work here on Earth to verify that it was safe, not only to go down into the crater, but that we could get back out again.
At times, we've reached slopes about 30 degrees and slightly higher. It's actually hard for people to walk on 30-degree slopes. We had a lot of close calls where, we'd be driving a particular location, we'd start sliding, and then we'd try to go back up and we'd slide. And there's a certain point where if you keep on sliding, you may never get out. It was a little nerve-wracking, but they determined it was worth going in there because scientifically it was so interesting.
The next target was another crater. This one was a 29-month drive away. Yet it was the journey to Victoria Crater that provided some of Opportunity's most significant discoveries.
We were simply driving along, we looked at the images that we had acquired, and we saw this dark spot out, and we said, well, whoa, that's different. Let's go there. And so we drive to it and investigate it.
Amazingly, we found, 3 or 4 of these meteorites, gigantic chunks of iron just sitting on the surface of Mars.
2 of them are they have what we call a cavernous weathering, where the interiors look like they've been eaten out, which is quite common here on the Earth when you have water that infuses and weathers out the interior. Was there liquid water when it was buried, or was there water at the surface? And these are all the kinds of questions that we're asking. It's exploration in its truest form. That's what's so wonderful about having a rover. If you don't like where you are, go someplace else. It's just like if I was walking around somewhere on Earth, except everything takes a little bit longer. But at the end of the drive, you get images and you look and you say, well, what's the same? What's different? What have we discovered? And what's better than having a rover that can do that while you're here in the comfort of Earth?
It was Opportunity's twin, Spirit, that made perhaps the most important discovery of the mission. It happened after a major mechanical failure meant the rover had to drive everywhere backwards.
2 years into the mission, so well past the prime mission, the right front wheel stopped working, and the wheel doesn't spin. So when we drive backwards, dragging that wheel, and it would cut a furrow. And so it actually turned out to be yet another scientific instrument or scientific investigation, because it now trenched as we would drive along, revealing what's just beneath the surface.
One thing that we seem to be finding almost anywhere we're digging this trench are these widespread deposits of various kinds of salts and minerals. They look this brilliant white or yellow in the color images, and that's because they're either sulfur or silica or salts of various kinds. And the really important thing about these minerals, and salts in particular, is that the only way they form is with water. So the fact that we're finding these salts is real evidence that there was hot water over a very widespread area, not just little isolated pockets. Mars really could have been a place that supported life. And without these rovers driving over these vast distances, far beyond their expectations, we would never have known that.
What Spirit has told us is that Mars was one time like the Earth some 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. There was liquid water on the surface, there was a thicker atmosphere, there were warmer temperatures, and there were even sources of energy, things like hot springs. These are all discoveries that Spirit has made. And this completely changes our thinking about Mars, that Mars was in fact at one time a place that could have supported life.
The rover's Spirit and Opportunity had confirmed that this barren landscape could once have given rise to life, an invaluable foundation for curiosity to build on. 300 kilometers above the surface is another NASA spacecraft, giving yet another perspective to the search for signs of life. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, or MRO, began its primary science phase in November 2006. Its cameras have captured avalanches in the Martian ice caps and water ice exposed in new craters. Its Compact Reconnaissance Imaging Spectrometer, or CRISM, analyzes light reflected from the Martian surface. Its senses can see the individual color components across the spectrum, from visible light to infrared. Since every mineral reflects a unique color signature, CRISM is able to map the exact composition of the Martian crust. The areas colored green in this image are places where carbonates are present. Carbonates indicate an environment that may once have been conducive to life, and that could have preserved signs of any life that occurred there in the past. This area has a complex mineral signature and shows that there are many different kinds of water environments on the planet. The rim of this crater shows channels running right from the top. This part of the Martian surface must have been shaped by rainfall. In the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, Curiosity has a very valuable ally. Coming up, the team who want to send humans to Mars and leave them there.
Accelerating. Risk mode under parachute, accelerating and descending. We are at 100.
Curiosity descended to the Martian surface well-equipped to survive the rigors of the red planet.
Risk mode dynamics.
But life on Mars would be a lot more difficult for humans.
We are 9 kilometers and descending.
Bitterly cold and bombarded by hostile radiation, the idea of a human colony still seems more fiction than science. But Mars One, a small startup company in the Netherlands, thinks differently.
Mars One is basically the project to put humans on Mars. And not just for a couple of days or for a couple of months. It's to put humans there indefinitely.
The first thing that will land is the supply mission. And the rover will land 2 years later in 2018.
Co-founder Bas Lansdorp came up with the idea. Depending on what Mars rover Curiosity finds out, Bas thinks it's entirely possible. As does technical director Arno Wilders.
Of course there's a risk involved, but it's not that dangerous as a lot of people think it is.
They've come up with this plan.
We're sending humans there in 2023, but we're not bringing them back.
For their carefully chosen recruits, exploration will be everything. There are plenty of people working on ways to support life on the red planet. The European Space Agency is testing rovers like the Eurobot. SpaceX is developing the next generation of spacecraft. Aerospace engineers are designing highly advanced suits to cope with the thin Mars atmosphere. And Paragon Industries is building life support systems in biospheres. Mars One plans to bring these aerospace companies together in pursuit of their mission.
We are not going to launch rockets, we are not going to design these components. All the things we need is available from existing suppliers that are making similar components for space missions.
Mars One has already captured a lot of attention.
I think it's incredibly exciting. Insanely audacious ideas that just really sparks my imagination. I've been involved in these large ideas all my career.
Jane Pointer and her husband, Tabor McCallum, spent 2 years in this self-contained biosphere in the middle of the Arizona desert, built as an experiment to see if humans could survive life on Mars.
This is fake wind that's blowing my hair around right now. The whole structure is completely sealed above by this glass and seal that you see over my head. And then below, there's actually a steel liner that completely seals it below. So it's a tiny encapsulated biosphere. All the plants, they produce our oxygen. They take up our CO2. The water that comes off of the ocean here is then captured and we drink that. It's a completely recycling system.
The biosphere is an extremely complicated structure. Mars One would send small-scale habitats first. They need to think small before they think big.
How's it going?
It's going great.
Tabor's looking at how to create small gardens to grow food. The idea is to find water on Mars, bring soil samples from Earth, and create a mini biosphere.
We have the basic technologies. We haven't yet put them into a configuration and tested them for a long period of time to be sure that we have all of the little wrinkles worked out. Because you don't want to get halfway to Mars and then suddenly not have any air anymore.
Space engineer Pablo de Leon has plenty of wrinkles to iron out on his spacesuit, which is designed to help people work outside their habitats.
It's a miniaturized spacecraft because you have to have all the same systems that you need on a spacecraft and also make it movable and make it comfortable for the astronaut who is inside.
Mars has a bitterly hostile climate. This is the biggest challenge when designing a spacesuit.
We don't have yet sample return missions from Mars. We don't know exactly how the soil will react to the different fabrics.
It has to be agile, yet with enough weight to allow a person to work safely in the low gravity found on Mars.
But I can move.
and walk with it. I don't think I can run with it.
Pablo says he's about 10 years away from a workable suit, and he's eager to prove his concept in space.
We can start planning for it tomorrow. We have the technology to go to Mars right now.
The European Space Agency are also looking ahead 10 years with this multi-purpose rover.
Our goal is here to look at different ways of performing tasks on the surface of a planet. So this could be either with people alone, or it could be the combination of people with robotics. It can go totally by itself, or it can be teleoperated from either the Earth, or it can be commanded from somebody who is in an orbiting station around the Moon or around Mars.
Putting humans on Mars is possible, but it won't be easy.
It's tough. There's no question in my mind that those guys and gals that go to Mars are going to have some tricky times, personally, at a psychological, emotional, behavioral health point of view.
The Mars One team sees the human exploration of Mars as not just being possible, but inevitable.
I think it's literally the next giant leap for mankind. It's the next thing we have to do. It's the next step in the evolution of our species.
But volunteers would certainly be taking the trip of a lifetime.
I'm having too much fun now. I don't think I want to go on a one-way trip.
10 years ago, I would have said yes immediately. Now I have a small kid, so I have to be a little bit careful. Ask me again in 10 years and I'll probably say yes.
If it was 2 tickets and I could bring my wife, that might work.
The Mars Society is an international non-profit organization dedicated to the settlement of Mars. They also believe that Mars has all the elements needed to support human life. They've established a research station in the Utah desert to simulate Martian living conditions, and have designed equipment that could one day make it to a future Mars mission.
We've done a lot of R&D for NASA. This here, this one, is a complete working type of a machine for making liquid methane and oxygen on Mars, a complete rocket propellant combination. These here are different experiments that all have to do with breaking down soil to release the oxygen. This is a prototype of a scouting airplane. It sucks in the Martian air, which is carbon dioxide, liquefies it through compression, gets turned into high temperature gas, shoots out the rocket nozzle to make thrust. But the beauty of it is each time it lands, it can do it again. And we have flown that around. Mars has got water. And water, if you have it, you can split it into hydrogen and oxygen, and thus make rocket fuel and oxygen. Then in addition to this, it has iron, aluminum, sulfur, phosphorus, all the elements needed for industry. So there's a lot of places in the solar system that we might be able to visit, but Mars is a place that we can settle.
With curiosity searching for evidence of ancient rather than current activity, it could be that the first life we see on Mars will be human.